Kouri Richins. You've heard her before. You know, she wrote that children's book with those lovely graphics. I made one myself. As the high-profile case of Kouri moves towards trial, prosecutors and defense attorneys are locked in a heated battle right now over the admissibility of key evidence that could shape the outcome. We got some clips of some of the trial or the pre-trial testimony from just the other day coming up. Richins is charged with the murder of her husband, Eric Richins, who died in March of 2022 from a fentanyl overdose. While conflicting narratives surround the investigation, both sides are arguing over whether law enforcement followed proper procedures in collecting crucial materials. And that is always important because people have gotten away with murder because somebody didn't cross a T or dot an I or Mirandize someone. Do kind of the basics, you know, like you should, because you can really screw up a case if you can't do your job right. From the beginning, investigators struggled to determine whether Eric Richins' death was an accident, suicide, or homicide. Detective Jeff O'Driscoll, one of the lead investigators, testified that Kouri Richins was not initially considered a prime suspect. We knew Eric had died of a fentanyl overdose, but did not know whether it was an accident, suicide, or homicide. O'Driscoll explained he described Richins as a very cheery, very open woman while he first spoke with her at her home. Characterization that has drawn some skepticism. Defense attorney Kathy Nestor questioned the detective's methods, particularly his extended 3-hour stay at the house, and in failure to inform Richins that their conversation was being recorded.
You got to do that. We had to do that in radio. If we were recording, the minute you answered the phone, you needed to say, well, we're recording you in some way, at least in the state of Wisconsin. I don't know what Utah's like, but you have to tell people that you are recording them in some states. That's just how it works.
I need to hear more in the story, but the fact he was there for 3 hours, it's a good amount of time. Hopefully it was just to talk about the case. I do wonder in that, though, you know, she chose to continue going to the conversation. She could say, I have an attorney, talk to my attorney. I have an attorney, talk to my attorney, and shoot him away. There's nothing stopping her from doing that. The fact that she had an attorney and didn't do that, it's not really the officer's problem. The officer can know that someone has an attorney, and that individual can still speak freely should they choose to do so. Their attorney's going to say, shut the fuck up. But it doesn't really matter if they don't want to. Plenty of cases do that, where people just keep blabbing their mouths, going against the the advice of their counsel, and they get in even more trouble. So is this that? Can you really go after the officer that was trying to get more information out of her and she was willing to keep talking?
It's an interesting question now, isn't it?
It is. I mean, the recording part, that is an issue. Unless, it may be, because every state has different laws, and I do not know what the law is there. Some states are a 2-party consent state. Some states are a 1-party consent state. I'm in a 1-party consent state. I can record anything, any conversation I have, and I do not have to tell the other person I am recording. I don't know what the law is there. There may be laws, there may even just be rules about that, or statutes in some cases when it comes to investigation. I do not know the answer to that question. Nestor also challenged why investigators obtained Richins' phone records before meeting with her without notifying her legal counsel. If you're investigating someone, I don't know that you have to. Again, could be wrong, but I don't know. O'Driscoll defended his approach, stating, in order to be thorough, I was trying to investigate all of those possibilities. Let's take a little look here at some of his testimony from just the other day in court. This is him talking about just that.
Intended to go in there and ask Kouri questions directly about what happened with her husband's death, didn't you?
After she invited us in and consented to having us interview her, yes.
When she invited you in, did you Mirandize her?
No.
Right. Did you know she had a lawyer?
No, I did not.
You did not? All right, let's look at the transcript for just a moment.
So my attorney has been pushing to, obviously we just wanted her off the case because we're not getting anything done, anything accomplished.
And who's she talking about wanting off the case?
I think she was referring to Detective Woody.
So minutes into your meeting with her, she advised you she had an attorney.
Yes.
And you knew that you were going to elicit information from her that could be used against her, did you not?
I didn't know what information she would provide. I just wanted to know the facts surrounding the night of his death.
If she had said, hey, I killed my husband, would you have used that against her?
Likely.
And he could. There's nothing against that. She invited them in to have a conversation. Again, it was her choice. It's the lovely work of defense attorneys. And I have great friends that are defense attorneys. But I get it. They're doing their job. They're trying to make hay where there is nothing. They're trying to make an argument. And I think in this case, more so sway public opinion, because I think a judge can easily look at this and go, and? Like, you can present it as, and did you do this? Did you open up the box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch and look for the toy? As if that's a bad thing. Doesn't matter how you tone it if it's not illegal. She invited them in. If he forced his way into the house and held her hostage and demanded information at gunpoint, yes, that would be a certain issue. She invited them in. She willingly talked to them. She said she had an attorney. It doesn't fucking matter. That was up to her. If she didn't want to talk to, at least call the attorney going, should I talk to these guys? I don't know if she thought she has nothing to hide. Maybe she does have nothing to hide. And that's why she said, yeah, come on in, let's talk. I really want to figure out what happened to my husband. Or could she have been doing that thinking, this is going to make me look really innocent. Come on in, let's talk. I want to find what happened to my husband, despite the fact that I bought fentanyl from an illicit drug dealer and then somehow it got into his food and he overdosed and died. That part probably wouldn't be in there.
Well, I was going to say there's that part. But part of the Constitution of the United States where this took place, you have the right to, illegal search and seizure is something you're protected from.
This was not that.
It wasn't. And again, she opened the door. They didn't bust it down with a battering ram. They didn't have the SWAT team show up and ransack her house. She opened the door and said, sure, come on in.
And he makes a very good point going, I did not know what information I was going to get from her. Because at the time, it was an investigation. She had not been charged with anything. I don't even know if she was a person of interest at that moment in time. I don't know. I could be wrong. But they were trying to just get information so they could figure out what happened here.
What happened to this guy?
And why would you... The first person you're going to talk to, of course, is the spouse. And again, you can have your attorney and say... Not without my attorney, or just no. She didn't do that.
You have that right. Absolutely.
And if she didn't know that was her right, sorry, you weren't being arrested. You weren't being charged with anything. You didn't need to be Mirandized because she wasn't being arrested at that moment in time. So, no, she said, come on in, let's chat. Yeah.
Well, and at that point, let's just say she's guilty. Okay. She had a front that she had to put on that she wrote this book about mourning her husband. She didn't do this.
Yeah.
So she had to put on the good show that she's the grieving widow.
Yes. And look, she could just be a really shitty person and had nothing to do with his death. He could have overdosed himself on something, quite honestly. It happens all the fucking time, especially if people are using illicit drugs and stuff. And maybe he did get something that killed him that was not administered by Kouri. Why was Kouri getting those drugs to begin with? Was she using them? Like, what was the purpose of getting the drugs, I guess, is the first question. And what is that answer? Because you wanted to use fentanyl, Kouri? Is that the answer? Okay, then go with that. But there is a possibility that she has nothing wrong here. She just is like a malignant narcissist and has a party right after her husband dies and buys the property that he didn't want to buy. And all
Right,
these
yeah.
things go into motion. But it could, I mean, that really, in all reality, if you have someone that is like that, they're not having the emotional response that you and I would have. They're just like, oh, well, that barrier's gone. And maybe, what if she's not happy in the relationship too? And it was almost kind of a relief that he's dead. You know,
Well,
some
yeah,
people,
and don't forget, he was telling his family
yeah,
that things were very dire in
exactly.
their relationship.
There's that.
mean,
Yeah.
You don't tell your family members, if something happens to me, you need to look to my spouse,
No,
unless things are really shitty.
no. I think I told you that in my last relationship.
You did. You freaking did. And a couple of people that I know that also work for you. One of them, Carol.
Yeah.
I was like, Carol, we need to chat. we need to watch out for Tony.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but that's the thing. When you have a psychopath in your midst,
yeah.
you start to put out the feelers like, hey, if something happens to me, I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
Here's where the treasure map is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something somebody does that's in a safe relationship.
No. I mean, unless you're a real paranoid person, I think you'd have to weigh that. Was Eric a paranoid person? I don't know. I mean, but if you're feeling that in a relationship, you shouldn't be in that relationship no matter what. You're not healthy enough to be in a relationship if you are feeling scared for your life, whether that is valid or not. You need some help, and the relationship is not it if that's how you're feeling.
It just seems very suspect, though, that here he is telling his family members that if something happens to him, you need to look to Kouri. And then guess what? He turns up dead.
Exactly.
And he had one other incident before that where he was violently ill. Like, if you were playing the board game Clue,
It's Kouri Richins in the bedroom with the fentanyl.
With the knife and the candlestick.
Exactly. They should do an updated version of Clue where it is like fentanyl.
Oh, God.
Make it a little more realistic. How often do we hear people being killed by candlesticks anymore, Or, it's like,
I miss the old days.
Let's make this real.
Now for Christmas, an updated version of Clue.
Exactly.
Including your favorite crime stories.
Oh.
What
if we made our own board game? It wasn't Clue. It was just our own board game.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that. We incorporated and you do a new one every year and you incorporate the worst characters of the year. Fucking hell.
Richard, or is it Richard Tellis? Robert Tellis?
Robert Tellis, yes. It's Robert Tellis with the Raiden hat.
Sombrero or whatever, yeah. Oh my God. Oh, it's awful.
There was another analogy I heard the other night on Saturday Night Live to Mortal Kombat. And look, I'm not making a political statement here, whatever, so don't anybody take it that way. But the comment that was made, and then you got Melania wearing the hat from Kung Lao in Mortal Kombat at the inauguration. Again, I'm not making a political. It was just a funny comment. I said it looked like Smooth Criminal. I was waiting for her to kind of bend forward and just keep her feet on the ground.
Well, and see, I was thinking Jim Carrey from The Mask.
The Mask was another one too. Yeah. I mean, it was
a unique outfit.
It certainly stood out. She got the attention I think she was going for.
Yes.
Anyway, further controversy surrounds how law enforcement seized Richins' phones during a traffic stop shortly after the initial search of her home. Eric Maynard of the Summit County Sheriff's Office collected her phone. In a recording played in court, Richins could be heard crying, but Maynard testified, "I did not see tears." Yeah, well, people can cry and not have tears, or make it look like they're crying and not have tears. See the Black Swan trial.
Yes.
That's a good one. He also acknowledged an error in the, or Alec Murdaugh. He also acknowledged an error in his report that mistakenly stated she was in custody at the time of the seizure. The defense argues that the inconsistencies raises serious concerns over the credibility of the investigation. You do have to cross those T's and dot those I's, but people are human, and small errors don't necessarily mean the case should be thrown out. Adding to the case's complexity is a letter titled Wag the Dog. Remember that one? Discovered in Richins' jail cell, prosecutors claim that the letter contains instructions for her mother and brother about how to handle their testimony and financial matters. The prosecution argues that the document is an attempt to witness tamper, basically. Particularly, its references to a person known as Lotto, described as an inmate acquaintance of Richins. Let's take a listen to some of that testimony that was made in court just the other day. I gotta find the file. Here we go.
Is about a conversation between Ms. Richins and her attorney, correct?
No. Just saying she's referring to this guy as the third person.
Right. She's talking about something that her attorney told her, correct?
Correct.
All right. So as you started to read this, you immediately saw that she was talking about something between her and her attorney, correct?
Correct.
But you continue to go on and read it?
Correct. So I scanned the document, and then fairly quick, she talks about basically what she's telling her brother to say.
Well, I understand that's what your interpretation of the document is, but let me back up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So when you come across documents that are privileged, do you typically go on and continue to read them?
They weren't marked as privileged.
When you come across documents about an individual's case that they've written?
We scan those documents, yes, to look for safety security threats.
You scan them or you read them?
Scan them. Or you read them until you determine that it's a legal document when it's a handwritten letter that's not in a legal folder or anything like that.
Now, you refer to that as a letter, but is that a letter addressed to anybody? Does it say Dear somebody at the top?
No, not at the top. At the back of it, it clearly is addressed to her mom.
Well, wait a minute. Let's clarify here. Addressing a letter would, there's no,
Hold on.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Bloodworth.
Like all the other documents in this case, it says what it says. We don't need a quiz on what it says.
Are there questions about why Sergeant Thomas did or didn't do whatever he didn't do next that you need to ask?
There is, and it's laying foundation for argument that will be made in the briefs.
If you need to ask questions about what he did or didn't do, that's fine.
I think it's important to clarify, for purposes of argument and privilege, whether or not this document was obviously a letter.
And guess what? If it's a letter, which it clearly is, it's not a legal document that was sent to her attorney. It was a letter. And you know what happens to letters in jail and prison? They're looked at.
Yep.
That's nothing new. But if we act like, oh, this is not okay, this is outrageous that they would look at this and it's not a legal document, or it is a legal document, even though it's handwritten and it's called Wag the Dog and it looks like a weird story of some sort and it's addressed to her mom, but you must assume that it must be a legal document, so you shouldn't be looking at it. You can talk like that all you fucking want. It's a letter. And they have every fucking right to look at it.
They can look at anything they want to in a jail. And again, if it didn't say,
attorney-client privilege stuff, you can't. But it was not that. If she wanted it to be that, then she should have been wise enough to put it in a folder with attorney-client privilege shit. So it was clearly marked that you can't see this, even though it's not attorney-client privilege shit. It's her own letter and code to her mom about this. But she wasn't smart enough to do that. So they looked at it. They had every right to look at it. There's nothing wrong with them looking at that sort of thing. They can search your cell anytime you want. You have no right to privacy in jail or prison other than attorney-client privilege documents, and this clearly is not one of them. But when you don't have much of a case, you're going to try and argue technicalities, which clearly is what's going on right now. Deputy Summit County Attorney Brad Bloodworth, because he was born to do this, emphasized the significance of the letter, stating this is not trial preparation. It's about controlling testimony and publicity. The defense has countered by suggesting the letter could be covered under attorney-client privilege because it refers to legal advice challenging whether it should be allowed in court. In a letter to your mom, you can say anything you want. It was not to your attorney. It was not from your attorney. This is like arguing with a 5-year-old, or a 12-year-old, actually. It's more like that, where that's not what the sign says. But that's what I think it says. That's not what the sign says. But that's what I think it... Doesn't matter. Another disputed issue is the search warrants executed against Richins. Less than 3 weeks after O'Driscoll's initial interview with her, investigators obtained a warrant to search her home for evidence, including copper cups and counterfeit pills. During the search, the orange notebook was seized, though its relevance remains in question. Additionally, when Richins was arrested outside a Salt Lake County business, authorities seized another phone, which her legal team claims may have been improperly handled. How? They got the phone. It's now evidence. Beyond the murder charges, Richins faces additional allegations of mortgage, fraud, and forgery, which will be addressed in a separate trial. As attorneys on both sides continue to file briefs to challenge or defend the evidence, the judge will make the final rulings in an upcoming hearing. The trial set for April. The battle is on over what evidence this jury will hear, and it is far from over, and that is such a crucial thing in any case. The evidence that gets in. Look at the Delphi trial. They argued and argued and argued for ridiculous amounts of stuff. Yeah, and Koberger with IGG, but Delphi specifically, because there you had a messed up system that was not letting in key pieces of evidence, like a whole FBI investigation into another person with tons of evidence. But they said, we're good. We got this, you guys. We're pros over here, too. We're something of that nature. That's why it is so key at the beginning of any trial. Most of your stuff goes in before you even get to the actual trial itself. And this is that. They're going to argue everything, see what sticks against the wall, and go with what sticks. Prosecutors are going to push to include key materials linking Richins to financial motives and potential witness manipulation. The defense is fighting to suppress evidence they claim was obtained improperly. It's going to be very interesting to see where all of this goes. And with an April trial date, is that what we just read?
That's what they're hoping for. That's really in 2 months.
January, February, March, April.
Okay, 3. Two and a half.
I'm gonna guess it gets pushed back. I'm going to guess it gets pushed back a little bit. Could be wrong. I'd like to see it go to trial because I think it's fairly. They probably have what they're going to have. The more time that can be spent on this, I guess the more you can try and influence a jury pool and throw doubt out into the public. Or argue the case. Like I said, it's not impossible that this is just really, really horrible optics, and she's just a person that doesn't feel normal emotions. And, went and had a fucking party right after he died because she saw it as an opportunity to do what she wanted to do. Again, there's nothing illegal about that. It's creepy. It's weird, but there's a lot of people that think like that and are not murderers.
Yeah, being an awful person does not constitute an illegality in this country.
No.
Now, if you're a terrible person and you do something terrible, that's a different story. But if you're just an asshole, male or female, well, for now, that's not illegal.
For now.
Now.